Hey, I'm AJ,
I'm Zach.
and this is Fresh Tactics.
Hey guys, so today we got a sweet topic for you, and it's kind of multi-pronged, but the idea here is, how do you make that transition into CrossFit? And we're going to be talking to you from the stance and the point of how we get people into it, and like how we use workouts to get people into it, and just the adaptability of the movements that we use, because we had a conversation with somebody that we were interviewing on the podcast, something similar to this. I feel like last week I was talking with my girlfriend about it. Like, the people you see coming into CrossFit gyms are few and far between the hard chargers anymore. Like, you're not seeing those people that are coming in like, I'm ready to get after it. I've been dying for this. So they're a little wary about coming in, or they're athletes and then they are kind of, and they're needing to get in a cross training zone, and you don't want them to get injured too as they're coming into it. So like, the big thing you really need to figure out is how to integrate people in correctly. And what we're going to do is we'll give you guys some like behind, it's nothing. I mean, you can get any of this information at any of our courses that you come to, or like you can come hang out at Hinge and we'll help you out. Like, we're all about bettering the coaching community as well. But the idea here is, our on-ramp is, I think, a thing that we can kind of talk about, and more so why the focus on some of the movements that we have in the on-ramp and how they flow into our classes and our workouts that we do really happens from that. If you caught our flow podcast, we were talking about when I brought it to AJ, and AJ was like, I hate the idea of that class. Go back and listen to it. You'll get what's going on, because it was a soft pitch I gave. I guess it wasn't that great of a pitch, but it worked, and we loved those classes. I had that exact same reaction when AJ was like, I want to do a structured on-ramp, a 3-week on-ramp that people had to sign up for, and they had to come to a number of classes. Now, the way that we have always viewed, when I say we, I can't speak for AJ, because AJ came to me from another gym. So she had kind of already integrated in her own way. Now, the way I always viewed it is, I have a martial arts background, a grappling background, and I feel like fitness and CrossFit itself, kind of, all right, if you want to look at it like that, is a journey, and you're always learning. You should always be getting better. You should always be like learning new movements and perfecting it. And I always just like, no one's going to come into an on-ramp and be snatching at the end. I don't think that they're going to be ready to do that. And the fact that, some people are like, this is how we do it, I almost was like, I feel like it's negligent for someone to think that they're just going to be ready in 3 weeks to do all the crazy stuff, and the classes are set, and the coaches should be able to flow the workouts correctly so people are safe and in a good learning environment and learning proper intensity. Excuse me. Now, something that what I do is I go out and I teach kettlebell courses and I'm like, I don't care if I'm in China and there's a language barrier and like my translator isn't on point, like, I'm going to get everybody doing this correctly by the end of the day, and they're going to be able to teach it back. So if I can do that in a day or two and get people competent in kettlebell movements, then how can we not maybe do that in our foundations? And that's kind of what AJ brought to me, was she wanted to do the on-ramp. And not only did she want to do the on-ramp, but it was going to be our kettlebell on-ramp. And we talked about maybe doing some kettlebell-specific classes before. Yes, I nailed that. Did you hear that?
I did.
I said specific correctly twice.
Zach says specific, and sometimes it's specific.
It's because I try and mumble it, and I just nailed that. I'm going to make Jess listen to this. Anyways, but the idea was it was going to be a kettlebell on-ramp to get people comfortable coming into our classes, because when people are like, oh, you're that kettlebell gym, we're like, oh, no, we're a CrossFit. Like, we're like the archetype of a CrossFit kettlebell gym. And then people are like, how do you put it into the classes, and what do you do, and is it the only thing you do? We're like, yeah, usually you're going to touch a bell like once a day in some form. It's going to be integrated in, and we found that was immensely important, especially when we like reshrunk our program down from having 3 or 4 options available in a class to being able to just like rock and roll on it. So when people are trying to integrate into the classes, or if they're like looking at CrossFit abroad and they're like, how can I get into that? AJ has sold me on on-ramp. AJ sold us on me on our style of on-ramp too. It doesn't mean that you guys need to throw your on-ramp out, but AJ's going to tell you kind of her thought process behind what you do, and maybe why she picked some of the movements that we have. So after all that praise, AJ, why don't you tell everybody about the Hinge On Ramp?
Well, to start, Zach missed the part where I had been pushing for an on-ramp for approximately 18 months before he gave in to it. The other 4 gyms that I either apprenticed at or coached at or both, all had on-ramps, either one-on-one or small groups. I've taught, I couldn't even tell you how many, like 50, 63 courses, getting people ready to integrate into classes. And I really like it because it gives you a chance to get to know the athletes so that they have a sense of, oh, I may not know a lot of people here, but I know her and she's my coach. I can go to her when I've not had a good day, I don't get a movement, whatever. I don't feel embarrassed to ask a question of her because she saw me on my first day, and nothing is, I'm never going to be as awkward as I was that first day. Like we've already passed that barrier. If it's a small group on-ramp, they get to know other people who are starting at the same time as they are. Usually they form kind of a cohort, and they often will come to class together. Like we run our foundations right now at 6:30 p.m. We see a lot of those people stay coming to the gym at 6:30 p.m. It gets them in the routine of coming to the gym 3 times a week right off the bat, rather than once or twice, which we all know can turn into 0. And finally, I think it's easier on the coaches and I'm not talking about people being an expert or even totally being proficient with each of the movements, but at least having had the exposure that they've at least seen this movement once or twice, they've at least tried it once, even if they don't know what weight they should be using or exactly, the difference between a push press and a push jerk or power jerk, as Zach likes to say. It doesn't matter because at least they know that bar or the implement is going over their head, and they're not confused that like they're putting the same weight they would use on a deadlift or a press. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So in our scenario, I wasn't totally sold on doing a kettlebell on ramp, but I met Zach halfway. Like, okay, I've been pushing for this for a year and a half. I'm not going to get it unless we do this in a kettlebell format. I'm just not. I have to compromise, and I don't want to do it because I'm stubborn and I think everything should be my way. Why it's not, I have no idea. But I compromise on it, and I really like it because now everyone comes into classes knowing the kettlebell movements better than their barbell movements, which in some cases actually allows them to go heavier.
Yep.
From the beginning, because they get to, if they're doing double kettlebell movements versus one barbell, they might be stuck with a 15-pound training bar for a long time.
Well, and if you have like athletes coming in, well, if you have like athletes coming in, like let's say you have like someone that maybe they're a snowboarder or maybe they're like a field sport athlete, maybe they might have junky shoulders and stuff like that, and like, are you really going to be pushing out the barbell as the thing they need to do, or maybe they have a non-existent rack? And part of the reason that we like kettlebells anyways is it's such a universally applicable thing to use. Like your wrists are supposed to be neutral anyways when you're using them. The offset weight promotes shoulder health and different things along those lines. And even though it can be heavier, like some of the kettlebell weights that we have people use, some people might view as a heavier weight, but to our people they're relatively light. And in the grand scheme of things, they're lighter than what you usually would be doing with the barbell.
When you're getting that whole body integration with, you have to keep your trunk tight more so when you're using independent weight. It shows earlier in the imbalances from side to side because they're independent weights. You have so many options. If someone has a bum shoulder, it's like, okay, you just do presses on your good side for today, and we'll figure out some rehab exercises for you to do on your shoulder side, which we'll probably also be able to do with kettlebells.
Yeah.
So it's like the whole package. The other thing I like is there is nothing I hate more than teaching people how to Olympic lift with a PVC. And I did it for a long time, and it worked. We spent a week on the Olympic lifts, and by the end of the week, I could, at my gym up in Canada, one of them, and I could confidently say probably about 90% of people had a really solid hang power clean and hang power snatch by the time they got out of that on ramp. And I was totally happy with that. And it allowed them to to go into classes and refine their skills. For our purposes here, there's no such thing as a PVC kettlebell. Even if you're using, double 15s, you're still loading in some way, and it gives people much more feedback as to how to move correctly. You don't have to stand there and hold a PVC in front of them and be like, don't hit this, don't do that, blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, they have some feedback from their weight, but they're never in danger, and they get this intuition much quicker about, oh, this is how it is efficient to move, because you can do reps on reps on reps on reps with the kettlebells, because that's what they're for, both in our context and in kettlebell sport. You're looking to accumulate hundreds of thousands of reps over your lifetime. You're looking to accumulate 100 reps in one training session. And so it's really helpful when that's the purpose of the implement, to then tell people, okay, we're going to get good at this, or we're going to get proficient at it. We're going to get you some exposure to it. If one rep sucks, don't worry about it. Do another one. Don't be that guy. And we've all seen it with the barbell. Someone snatches. My mom is so guilty of this. Sorry, Mom. And they have the bar still overhead, and they look to the side. They're like, oh, was that a good rep? And you're like, don't turn around with that bar. Oh, you're gonna hurt something. With the kettlebells, it's a little bit easier to cue people like, okay, look, we're gonna swing. It might not feel awesome. You might be doing something wrong, but when I come up to you and start cueing you or start tapping on your bell or whatever it is, don't stop. Just keep going with that cyclical motion, and we'll fix it as you're going. And for whatever reason, they feel much more confident with that than with, if I'm trying to adjust their barbell over their head, then that's comfortable as well.
Well, there's the strength and skill transfer component of it too. And so what I mean by that is, like, when we teach our courses, I'm not selling snake oil. Like, I believe it and I mean it. And I'm like, if you do this, it will get you better at your gymnastics. If you do this, it will become more proficient in glute engagement and how to hold your body and how to do things. And it'll show people how to have different transferabilities. So not only, like, when they go through that on-ramp that you've constructed, do they learn the kettlebell movements, but they learn an immense amount of body awareness that we're, like, tricking them towards. Because if you've ever done gymnastics, or like try to work on, maybe you're like, oh, I have decent gymnastics, and then asked to do like higher end gymnastics, like, and you work with a coach, there's a lot of like spotting and body weight, and it's very exhausting to go through. And you can only do so much of it. Now, if we can get them to hold themselves correctly with the bells and have an idea of how to actually activate their lats, or how to activate their trunk, or how to activate their hamstrings, then that's a huge win when we go back into the classes, because then they're familiar with the vernacular. We're like, get your hips back like blank, and then we can actually get them working towards some of the other stuff in a safer context than just throwing them into the fire, really, to kind of get it going.
So the simplest analogy for that I've heard you talk about is, so in gymnastics we're learning how to create body shapes. Kettlebelling, we're learning how to create angles.
Yeah.
But through learning those angles, by necessity, you're still creating those shapes, so that it's like when you start learning a second language like French, and this is totally true in Canada, and I'm assuming the same in America. In English class, we don't really learn grammar, we just learn the language. And so then you go to French class, I've heard teachers complaining like, oh, I had to teach all of you guys grammar before I could teach you French so you could understand what's going on as you get higher into the levels. It's the same thing. You're teaching people, or we're teaching people, the grammar of physical literacy, so that then when they go into other domains or other languages, quote unquote, then all of a sudden their proficiency is so much higher, because they've already learned the basics that transfers across all domains. The same way that every CrossFitter who has a baby is like, oh, I'm going to put my kid in gymnastics. It's giving them physical literacy. We're giving people who may or may not, and that's the thing, it's a mixed bag every time, may or may not have had that physical literacy training, sort of we're either introducing it to them or bringing it back to them.
Have you heard that term before?
Physical literacy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, I have not heard that term before.
Oh, really?
I thought you made that up, and I was like,
No.
wow, that just blew my mind. Yeah.
It's like what you were talking about in...
I have not heard physical literacy.
It's like a very academic thing.
It is academic.
About,
That's like when you're like, when you know and you're learning French and I was going to sign you lousy. Remember I took sign language. No, I took it to get out of high school. You need 2 years of foreign language to get out of high school in the States.
2 years, and literally the only thing he remembers is a sign for lousy.
I remember water. Wait, if you don't use it, you lose it.
I literally cannot wait until someone rolls into 6:30 p.m. who's deaf, and then we're going to have a trilingual class with English, Spanish, and deaf, and Zach's just going to be signing lousy and counting to 3 in Spanish, and I'm going to have to run the whole fucking thing.
Yeah, we got it going. We're working with everybody. Yeah, it's a higher academic level thing.
No, yeah. So it's physical literacy is the kind of thing that people say when we start talking about taking recess out of schools, or only having PE once a week rather than every day. Where a kid's going to gain that physical literacy, because we've all seen it.
Yeah.
And it's not cool, and it's not comfortable if you can't organize your body properly. Not because it's not good for your health, but also you feel like a fucking dweeb, and it sucks.
Well, our teens, we have a non-profit teen program that we do here at Hinge, and
Bless their heart.
our teens.
I have never met a wrestler who could set their back.
Oh, not even those. Yeah, I brought some wrestlers. Not even the wrestlers, just like any of the kids.
The other kids who are not doing athletics in school, or they are in a very minimal sense. It's tough.
Yeah.
And but that's why we started it, right? It's because we grew up being active in a very outdoor sense. You on the beach and me in the forest. Yes, we are all little forest sprites in Canada. And it gives you a sense of like freedom, blah blah blah, millennial and Gen Z are doomed, a sense of freedom, but also a sense of comfort in your own body, in a whole new set of life skills that we want to pass on to kids, because it makes them more confident, gives them all sorts of mental health benefits as well.
Well, and the big thing behind using the bells, you are listening to a freaking podcast that with people like lead kettlebell seminars, so of course I'm going to talk about bells all the time. But the thing about the bells too that I like is like you can get natural athletes that suck with kettlebells. Like some people can walk in and they're athletes, and you're like, here's how you snatch, and it might not be the best snatch. Like I'm talking about a barbell, but they snatch and they kind of stall then because like I got it, and they don't feel like they need to work on it anymore. And then comes across in the workouts, because they're like, oh, I know how to do the movement, or I monkey see, monkey doed it, and they're like, oh, you mean a muscle up, and they grab the rings and like huck themselves over the rings.
And intensity, it either starts to fall apart or it starts to get dangerous because they are doing it but not correctly.
So the thing I really like about that on ramp, for be it like kids that don't know how to move really well, or like higher level athletes that are coming in to get like Sean's a great example of like an athlete. I mean, however you want to look at it, but like Sean's like a pro snowmobiler. Yeah. And so like he came in here to cross train for that, and he's got all these injuries and stuff. He wanted to be more durable and things like that. And he doesn't naturally pick these things up. Now I know you guys, and like I'm the worst about like baseball's, not really a sport, it's a game. So you're saying snowmobiling, but Yeah, but sorry. But the thing with like the snowmobiling, like he came in here for a reason. He wanted to be better at something, and he wanted to be more durable, and he needed to be safe, because if he got hurt, he couldn't be out there doing his thing. If he's not getting his pictures and he's not getting his followers up, he's not really doing what he's supposed to be doing for his sponsors and stuff like that. So he needs to be able to do that. So taking something and integrating it and getting him comfortable with it. So he didn't naturally pick these movements up. Not a lot of them, but even like the kettlebells were definitely a foreign one to him. But as he's gotten better at that, I've seen it happen. As he's gotten better with the kettlebell stuff, his barbell has gotten better. Everything has gotten better because...
When his whole season
was
awesome this year.
Yeah, his whole season went better. But the idea is like, if you can get those movements down, which are some, to us, people in our gym, they think they're very, very basic. They're like, oh yeah, I can. Oh, so we're gonna hand it. Like I'm gonna throw the bell up in the air. I'm gonna do a hand-to-hand snatch.
People go to other gyms, and the weight for a kettlebell snatch, like RX plus, is 53 for the dudes, and we have a guy who's just a normal businessman dad who comes in at lunch, and he's like, are are you serious?
Yeah. Well, and it's the same thing like this. You can go in and like you'll be training with like higher level CrossFitters and they're using relatively lightweight. And it's not like I'm saying like everyone needs to lift heavy, but it's just that competency of the weight. And it's a great way to integrate people into classes because as they're learning it, they can start learning intensity. And that's a great way to bring them along safely too. Like, because there is that little bit of that self-limiting factor, instead of self-limiting just because it's a heavy barbell that you can't snatch or clean it properly without leaning back. Like, we've all seen it. Somebody cleans a bar. You're like, yeah, you cleaned it. It went to your shoulders.
in the bare definition of
In the definition
it
that
occurred.
that it went from the ground to your shoulders. And no, you're not going to use that weight in the workout. I don't care what it says on the board.
Mm-hmm.
In our gym, like when we have weights listed, and we actually just started doing this on our media channel too with the RX dose of the day, or the daily dose, where we kind of talk a little bit more about the prescription of the intensity that we want from something. So when we list weights, that's as heavy as you can go. It's not like here's a desired thing per se. It is meant to kind of create a stimulus, or we leave weights open-ended and we'll tell people how we want them to get there. Now, a lot of CrossFit coaches are like, oh yeah, we do that too. And I say like, if you can't do it for 5 reps, then you shouldn't be doing it. We by design have it set up so people will have elicited responses to help keep them safe too. And it's self-limiting in its own way, and they're holding certain muscle tensions, and it's hard because they're having to do that. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. And if you start with that basic integration of the on-ramp, it's really great. And we have like athletes or that come in that like, I have been at another gym for 2 years and I want to join. And we're like, you probably should go through the on-ramp. And it's like,
they don't want to.
Pissed.
But then they go to regular classes.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh shit, I kind of do need this, because they see the proficiency of everyone else in the class with the bells, and they're like, oh, I don't want to be using double 26s when everyone else is using double 53s, because it's not that they're not strong enough.
Yeah.
They just don't have the understanding.
Exactly. Well, my mom comes up and starts warming up with their kettlebell weight. And they're like, what?
Zach's mom is almost 70, and
Yeah.
she was just crushing it. She puts 25-year-olds to shame on a weekly basis.
But I know my mom's a BA, but I got another older gentleman who is a BA. His name's Todd.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Todd's how old now?
78.
70, yeah.
He's turning 79.
78, 79. He's had, I mean, obviously through his entire life, long life, he's had all kinds of shoulder issues and things along those lines. And Todd can come into a class and I'll just be standing up there and I'll be talking and I'll be like, now you guys do this. And they're doing things with the kettlebells and he's totally fine and safe. Or if it's a barbell thing, I'm like, go grab your kettlebells and we're going to do this. And he's working hard and working harder than maybe some of these other people that are coming in, because he's been brought along safely. And there's that diversity of movement that we leave more open-ended. Like, we're looking to take the angles of the movements, like you said, or the shapes of the gymnastics, and we're looking for ways to reinforce them. And we like to do it at Hinge with the kettlebells. Now, I do know, I teach at something called Power Monkey Camp too, where there's a bunch of specialists that come in, and I bet my boy Duke probably has a heavy emphasis on gymnastics in his gym, because he was at Cirque du Soleil at one point too. He was a gymnast at Penn State. He's fantastic. He teaches the muscle up stand there. My buddy Andy does the bar stuff there. He was an ASU gymnast and stuff. And there's all these really high level guys, and they probably gravitate towards the movements that they're more familiar with. But there's a lot of times you get certain people they're nowhere near hanging on a bar or a pair of rings yet, and they're just not. So
that you can still develop that physical literacy.
Exactly.
With an independent weight that's not your own body weight.
Especially with people who are physically illiterate. See what I just did there?
Well, so circling back to this open-ended prescription, I think this is really important. So when I'm running foundations, there is a conditioning aspect to every class.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, we do a quick workout. I would say it's usually in the 3 to 10 minute range. We keep it really short because I want the emphasis to be on the learning. However, I on purpose, you asked me 6 months ago, hey, can you write down workouts for each of the foundations class just in case someone else to teach it? No.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what group you're going to have. Maybe they should stick with kettlebell deadlifts for their Tabata on day 1. Or maybe they can swing. Maybe they're doing great. My last group was a group of fucking superstars. It was a previous collegiate athlete, 2 Globo Gym dudes who actually are pretty good movers, and then 3 people who had done CrossFit before. And so their final on-ramp workout was a Turkish get up to standing, 3 snatches, and then they completed their Turkish get up back down to the floor.
Nice.
And they were fine with that, but there's no other group I've ever had that I would have let them do that in their 3rd week.
Oh yeah.
Coming to our gym. So this is I'm going back to it. If you put your brand new coach in charge of on-ramp,
Yeah.
they might not have, I mean, maybe they are a coaching savant and they know exactly what people should and should not be doing. However, maybe they're not. And if someone gets hurt in your on-ramp, they're never going to come back and they're going to tell everyone they know that they got hurt at CrossFit. So don't be that guy.
Yeah. You got to keep them safe. Number 1 rules. Keep them safe. And, you know, when you were like, I was like, are you going to write the workouts down? Because you're very structured in a lot of things. And you're like, no. And as soon as you said it, I was like, oh, I totally get it. I mean, that's kind of something I've kind of told you before, too. Where it's just like, show them the movement and then implement the intensity. And, like, they're just going to feel it under the intensity. Like, when we teach the courses, sometimes I'll just have them do, like, okay, guys, do 15 snatches on the right, 15 on the left. And people are like, oh, that was, and we're like, you can't set it down, or you have to do burpees. And people are like, that's hard. I'm like, that is a joke that you think 15 is hard, but it's cute. Yeah. But the thing behind it is like then you implement the intensity, and that brings them along safely. So if you're working with like athletes that, you know, are in here to cross train, and they're looking to be able to stay safe so they can do what they love doing better, then give them the ability and the tools to do that. If it's someone that wants to fall in love with training, give them the tools so they can do it. You know, I still very much believe in the gym is a journey kind of thing, and you should always be bettering and learning and stuff like that. But it has made some of the redundancies in class easier, having covered the kettlebell stuff, where I can focus a little bit more on something else in the class instead of that, because everyone's up to speed. Because if someone doesn't know how to kettlebell snatch, it's a nightmare getting them to do it right. Some people are like, oh, just have them flip it over their head. They're doing it wrong. But if you can take that and use similar verbiage to get them barbell snatching correctly, awesome. If it doesn't go well in the movement review, you're like, hey, man, you did great. You learned something. I want you to go grab a kettlebell, and we're just going to work on that dynamic overhead.
Progress to progress.
Exactly. I'm like, you're not using a barbell today. You're going to still keep working on that skill. And some gyms, they're Olympic lifting gyms, and they're going to want people to be completely dialed in that. Cool, go for it. We have a very well-rounded program that has all that stuff put in there, and it gives everybody the ability to train together and do this kind of stuff. And that's really what the main focus of what we've been doing, and why you actually sold me eventually on the on-ramp. And I've been very happy with the way it's been going. And again, guys, if you have your own variation of on-ramp and you feel like you're being attacked, it's okay. You don't have to do what we're telling you to do. We're just telling you, when people ask how this works, here's a little behind the curtain on how things work better for us. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing I tell my coaches when they go to a seminar. Like, we still go to seminars, we still do our continuing education. If you take one thing away from a seminar that you're going to use every day, then you're golden. If you heard one little thing that we said during this that's going to help you guys with integration of athletes or new people into your gym or program, or how you want to structure it, awesome. That's great. Like that's kind of the point behind this, and why we're definitely trying to keep this open dialogue open for people on what we're doing. And don't get me wrong, you'll find plenty of the podcasts where we'll tell you what we did wrong. Like, I did that did not work. And that's also just about like being a vulnerable coach too. If you're infallible, you're also being a bad coach. And if you are stagnant, you're being a bad coach. You need to continually try and grow your craft for your culture of your gym, for your community, and that will help bring in more people and more diverse athletes. You'll get a way better look at life working with 78-year-old dude who's awesome to the 20-year-old collegiate athlete who just got done playing basketball, and how you're going to integrate them together in the safety system to keep them going. So we've done that through On Ramp, and I think AJ kind of nailed it on that. If you guys heard this and you have any other questions on that, I'm sure we'll recover this again in some other podcasts, and maybe you can go a little bit more in depth on it. But feel free to DM us or shoot us an email or something like that, and we'll cover it in the next one. But I mean, we could talk for hours about this, but I think this is a pretty straight shot into like a little glimpse on how we think integration can work really well. So remember, guys, when all else fails, fresh tactics.